All right, Norcal Karters, this is Jason. And tonight we have a special live stream podcast with some gentlemen from the Rock Sonoma series. And we have 3 competitors that run in the 125 Rock Limited class. And I'm going to bring them on one at a time. So first we have, and I've butchered his name all year long, Steve Pago. Steve, say hello.
How you doing? How you doing, buddy?
Well. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Thanks for joining us tonight.
You bet.
And then next we have Pat Beckley.
How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing good, Pat? Let's see. And last but not least, we have Dee Baldwin.
Good evening. That seems to be a standard announcement for you as the last but not least, but
kind
of used to it this year.
I was so thinking it, D. I don't know what it is. So I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, do D first. You know?
No, it's all good, dude. I'm used to this.
Used to this. I don't know if you listened to the last live stream, but you were running up there like second or third. And I'm sorry I'm an ass, but I had real surprise in my voice. Like Dee Baldwin's running up in second.
I know.
That last race was wild. That last weekend, it was wild.
It sucked. I don't know what you're talking about.
that was a great race.
Man.
So we have it sucked. So Steve says that race sucked. Pat says that race was great. And then D, where do you fill in? Right in the middle?
I'm up there. I just wish it kept raining. I needed every advantage I could get, and like the 30-second head start wasn't enough apparently.
I'm telling you, we went into turn 1, it starts raining, and we all just like slide. Everything is just slow motion for the first like half lap. You know, everyone's spinning in every direction. I come across Pat's like in the mud, some turn, trying to get his go-kart out of the mud. It was just classic. So
yeah, that was a wild weekend. So for those who don't know what we're talking about, if you go to YouTube and you go to the Rock Sonoma YouTube channel, the last half of the year, the events were live streamed on YouTube. So you can go back and you can watch all the racing. And again, that's on YouTube, Rock Sonoma. So that's what we're talking about. We did race number 8 and race number 9. It was just a really wild day because it was supposed to be a 2-day event. It got crushed down into one day, and then the rain happened, and the track was drying, and
yeah. Anyways, yeah, Pat charged through though. He came from the mud to, I don't know, 3rd place. I don't know, where'd you end up?
3rd place.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
I saw him coming, felt him coming. I'm like, have at it. You know, it's yours.
No one was radioing to me telling me the track was drying out, so I did 3 or 4 extra laps as full wet as everyone just blew past me. So.
Is it like, Pat, I mean, D, is it all of a sudden you wake up and go, wait a minute, it's dry out? Yeah. Do I start going fast?
Yeah, I started turning and I see you guys catch up and I'm like, oh, they're going pretty quick. And then I realized they're on the racing line and I'm not. So yeah, 3 or 4 laps later, it was just over. That was fun.
Well, the seniors had just finished and the track was dry on our out lap. And then when we took off from the start, it was soaking wet.
Yeah. So I got gamed bad by Pat. Like on Friday when the tsunami warnings were coming in, he showed up in his clothes and it's like, I'm not racing this weekend. Like this is dumb to race in the rain. And he's like everyone, like I've done this for a couple years now is my experience. So I'm looking at him. I've never raced rain tires. I've never even seen them. And so I had to buy some sets for the weekend prep for, and he's telling me, your go-kart's going to be ruined. Like your week, what are you doing? I'm not racing. And so thanks for that, Pat. I appreciate it. And then he just walks away just laughing.
That's so Pat. That's so his motto though. Yeah. No, this is stupid. I'm not doing it. Right.
I walk inside and I'm like, babe, we're not racing, man. Pat says it's bad. I'm just shutting it down.
Yeah. Well, who wants to get their stuff all dirty?
It's racing, right?
Yeah, it is racing. Racing in the rain is so much fun.
If it's full rain, I liked it. Like when we were practicing Friday morning in the full rain, that was actually kind of fun. With full rain setup, the whole gamma, tires and setup. It was actually really good. It's when you are on the track when it's dry and you're on slicks and it rains. Then it's just, it's like ice. there's no way to do it, you know.
It's experience. It's so fun watching like the top guys, and you look at their lap times in the rain versus the dry, like at the Supernatural, one of the big races where that stuff is happening. And it's amazing how fast they're going, even in full wet compared to the dry stuff. And you're watching them. It's like, they must have a different kart for the rain, not just because it's going to get wet, but the way they drive it, everything. It's like, man, that kart just goes wherever they want it to in the rain.
You know, threshold braking. I know, like, Dee, you probably know a lot about this. It's just keeping the traction underneath you, you know? You're just not stomping on it in and out as hard, basically.
So what was your guys' theory when it came to gear ratios in the rain? Were you going to go short or were you going to go long, specifically for the rain? Or no change at all?
My chassis has literally been the exact same setup from the day I took it out of the box. I have never touched it from the day Gary put it together. I've never touched one thing on it. Rain setup, dry setup, race setup. I've changed one gear since I've owned it.
One gear.
One gear.
That's it.
That's it.
Is this a Pat Rain story or is that the truth?
Honest to God. Yeah, I was just telling the guys that the other day. Literally, I've never touched the chassis. Just polish it every day and that's it. Nothing.
Yeah, Jason, like, I've tried both, you know, so when you go short, to me, it's like it spins the tires too quickly. You know, it's too peppy, right? So my theory was long. I went long. Not that it really mattered because we didn't actually race in the rain on rain tires, but on Friday I was running long gear, so it would just kind of bog coming out of the corners and then pick up speed instead of just spinning tires initially coming out of the turns.
How about you, Dee? What was your approach?
I think we had no change from where we were. And again, I use the word I think because Rob plays the game smart with me and doesn't tell me what he's doing because he knows that I'll just tell everyone. So we did the same setup as before, though.
Grab your helmet, drive.
Yeah, Dee's on a full arrive and drive. Yeah. Rob just looks and just shut up, get in the go-kart, bro.
I just asked, I scratched my head, and I'm like, okay. Yep.
Fantastic. That sounds like a good program right there. Don't think, don't do it, just drive.
It's great.
Just go. All right, let's bring everyone up to speed. What are we talking about? We're talking about Rock Sonoma. We're talking about the 125 limited shifter class. And so for those who don't know, the 125 shifter limited, it's a Vortex Rock engine package, 6-speed, 125, 2-stroke engine. And the only difference between that and the other shifter package is the exhaust restrictor. And who wants to kick it off for us? What makes that limited class so attractive for you guys? Who wants to kick it off?
Pat.
Let Steve go. He's always got all the info.
Oh, I don't know. You know, I was thrown into it almost kind of like Dee was. We were racing Masters a couple years ago. And, you know, your top 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys, the whole group, they would just pull away. And Steve Cameron came up with the idea at the beginning of that season of like, hey, let's have a beginner class / old man's class is kind of I think how he kind of started it. So I didn't do it for the first couple races of the season. And then it was like Father's Day weekend. There was no one, Pat and all these guys, Dee, I don't think Dee was there. No one was racing because it's Father's Day weekend, but you had the top 5 in points master guys. So after heat race 1, heat race 2, those guys were just gapping me. They're like, hey, just throw this in and do the main event. So there's only 5 limited at the time. I jumped in it and went from 5th to 2nd, you know, in the main, and was like, this is actually pretty cool, just because it takes away the grunt of the motor. It's less, just like 20%, 10% less, all across the board. So that's my attraction. You know, we get older. It's harder to do what we're doing, you know. So that's just kind of what I like about it. It's just we're still banging gears. We're not that far off pace from Masters.
No, you're not.
You know, when we're on practice days and the Masters are out there with us, you know, you be polite, you let them go by you, and you can tuck in and you can kind of hold on to their bumper for a while, or vice versa. If they're behind you and you just stay hammer down, they have a hard time getting around you, so it's just a tad slower, but the grunt of it, the G loads, everything is just a tad less. So
how about you, Dee? What's the attraction to you about the limited class?
Yeah, I think mine's a little unique because I just started racing in 2019. So my karting experience is pales in comparison to most of the people that we're racing out there with. So I first started my first 2 races in Masters, and it was silly, right? So like, it's one of the most humbling things that I've done, in that typically I'm pretty good at picking things up. You get out there and you perform well. That's not what happened with Masters. It was embarrassing almost to see how fast and just the sheer like precision that everyone in Masters was showing was eye-opening to me. So at that point I was, I had my little trailer with my family. I was trying to wrench on my kart myself, realized that like, I'm mechanically, competent, but just, I think my second race I was there running, and Nick Leduc walked by and looked at my exhaust pipe, and he's like, it was jet black, right? I had no idea that I was running just full rich, and just the thing had no horsepower. And he like kind of took me under his wing. He took my carb, threw a new jet in, came back, and I was like shocked. I ran like a second and a half faster in one lap with one jet change. And then you realize like, wow, I can't do this myself. Thinking that I'm going to just step in here. It's so precision. So to me, getting into limited and having that, just that edge taken off. But what's happened now is that you can see the limited class has become its own elite group in and of itself. So the first couple times there was a pretty big gap out there, and there was some early success that I had finishing on the podium, and then since then everybody's just keeps developing, getting faster and faster and faster, and now it's getting fun to see that there's adjustments to be made and improvements that can be out there. And making a tenth of a second on a setup or a new layout is really rewarding. But to me, I don't get to practice as much as I should, and it just keeps it fun. It's something to look forward to, and it's a great class for sure.
Yeah, it's had a lot of support over the past year and a half in that class. And for those that aren't familiar with the classes up there, when they're talking about the competition, guys that are going out to the track, spending a lot of time to go fast, let's look at Kevin Woods and Neil Joseph. So they were running Masters. Neil Joseph then started running in the pro class. Kevin Woods jumped out of Masters, started running in the pro class. And they were top 5 guys in the pro class all year long.
Yeah.
And the only change from the Masters to the pro class is 10 pounds?
Yeah, something like that.
And so yeah, I mean, it's ultra competitive up there in that in the Masters class.
It is, and that's kind of what Dee, was referring to 2 years ago when him and I were playing with him. You're going against the best in the best of the United States. I mean, these guys go to Supernets and they can run up the top 10, and you're running against those guys at your home track. I like it. I know Dee's the same way, because it elevates your level. You go out there and you think man, I am killing it. And then you get on track with them and they just walk away from you. You're like, man, or sometimes they're like, hey, hop in the cart, and then you look at the data afterwards and these guys are a second and a half quicker in your go-kart, which is huge. You're just like, how are you even doing that? Because I'm driving at my max.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very humbling.
But a true, like, a shout out to those guys, especially Neil Joseph. He posts videos online. So to me, getting new to the track and not knowing a layout, right? I'd look at the calendar and see it's this layout or that layout, and I'd never driven it before. So the first thing I do is go on to Neil's YouTube channel. I'd go to his prior races. I'd sit there with a stopwatch to try and figure out what times he's running. And you watch his videos and it's like silly, simple, right? In your head, you're driving up there. Oh, I'll be right there. It'll be a tenth of a second off this guy. Like, it's just no brainer. I got this. Yeah. And then you run and you're like, man, like 3 seconds. How'd that happen? So I really appreciate what he's doing with putting those videos on there. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
So Pat, why don't you chime in here?
Okay. Well, going back to Dee, thanks to Neil, I've already got Tucson dialed. So I've already got every inch of that track figured out. So mine kind of started with Steve and with the COVID stuff, because the only racing that was going on was Fontana, right? So for me to drive down to Fontana every other weekend to race LAKC was getting to be a bit pricey. So then with, last year or the year before, we had a great master class, KA, kind of at Sonoma. And with the COVID races, there was quite a few people participating. And it seemed like all at once, Ron Jenkins moved to Florida. Ivan, he kind of quit. Roman kind of quit. And that really didn't leave any class. So I was getting to the point where driving to LAKC, every other weekend was getting rough. So, and then, the kids, they're kind of stuck with you and the whole motel thing, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and then try to get home Monday for work was getting kind of rough. So just watching Steve and all the guys do the limited, I kind of thought, man, that looks cool. And then that was it. It just made it really easy to get into, and it's close to home, 2.5 hours. And that just beats having to drive, 30 hours on a weekend just to go race. So that's how I got into it. And it's a lot of fun. I
want to put these other guys on the spot real quick, because Dee and Steve, you guys have been running the shifter class for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you expecting to see the back of Pat's number panel this year?
So it comes twofold for me, because me and Pat practice weekly together for 2 years now, maybe a good year and a half, right? Other tracks, during the winter, I'd go up to his home track. So I've been running with Pat for a while, and, we're all good friends. And so he did get into the limited, and then I did show him some things, and then all of a sudden he's quick, and I'm like, Pat, you're cut off, bro. Like I'm not helping anymore, But he probably puts in the most time than all of us. He puts in the time, so I should be looking at his rear bumper sometimes, because he's putting in the time to be up front. So yeah,
I think it was pretty obvious. I think first weekend out with him, I think you could just tell just the way he was driving was fast. I think he was still battling the gears and would miss a gear here and there, and the mistake would make it like, okay, we could hang. And then I was in front of him one race, and I was going as fast as I could go, but I was obviously slowing hub bump a little bit. And he's like, we came off, and said something as, dude, you can't slow us down as a group. Like, we got to catch the front guys. I'm like, I'm trying. Like, that's as much as I got. That's as much as I got. I'm not trying to slow you down. But no, you could see that this once the shifting was timed right, it was kind of game over for me.
Yeah, and I don't know how long I've known Pat for. 4 years, Pat? Maybe. About 4 years when you started doing the Briggs racing. So I kind of had that background with Pat. It's like, all right, he was doing the Briggs racing out here in the Central Valley tracks, and next thing I know, he's racing up there at Sonoma with the tag packages, and then all of a sudden he's in a shifter in that limited class. And at the end of the year there, you were running some good races there. You had your first race win in the shifter this year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been fun. I think the best thing about the limited, and I have talked to Renee Martinelli. I've talked to him in Florida, and just to kind of see what their interest would be in the limited. And, I have talked to Garrett Potter also, and Steve used to always joke around about the limited was cheaper than the KA to run. And you think about that, you think there's just no way. It's impossible. So when I got the limited, never touched the chassis once, tire and fuels, that's it. And the tires don't really last much worse than the KA or Rock GP. It's all pretty good. And the engines go. So when I took the restrictor out 2 weekends ago, I've already blown one engine, snapped 2 chains, and broke a sprocket. So, and went through 20 gallons of fuel, So, it's that's the difference. The limited package it's cheaper than a KA. I could show anybody on paper that they would never buy it. They'll never believe it. But there's just the power difference for that literally 1 second of time at Sonoma. And so if Sonoma's a bigger track, it's not going to be a second at, say, Dixon. It's going to be just a little bit.
Yeah.
But Sonoma's a pretty big track, and the difference is, what do we get? Sometimes 79, 80 miles an hour if we get it just right.
Yeah.
The other day, last weekend, was 83, 84 in the non-limited. So it's not that much difference.
Yeah.
But the pocketbook feels the non-limited big time. And having the limited, it's pennies compared.
Because on the KA side, for example, or any two-stroke on those, the tag, the chain and the sprocket are the problem that they have. You break them, you stretch them, you're constantly. I mean, back when my kid was racing, the old tic-tac-toe now, I would go $400 in chains and sprockets in one weekend because you would break them constantly, $80 chains or whatever. You on the shifter, as we all know now, the chains are so big, the gears are so stout. I put a new chain on every month or two just because, not that it needs it, it's just because the same gear, front driver is the same, the rear driver is the same, so you could stay on the same chain and gear front and rear the whole season if you wanted to. And the rebuilds are actually less, except a full rebuild. We'll just go with the top end. The top end rebuild on the shifter motor is less than a KA. Full rebuilds will kind of make up for that difference. But Pat can tell you he's got what his wife kept track of his spending between the two motors, and he's got data that shows the shifter motor itself and the limited per se is probably the cheapest engine package to run.
I thought that was rule number one. Don't give the wife the spreadsheet. We're all sponsored. I thought we were all sponsored.
Yeah, no, I got my butt kicked on that one at the end of this season. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was telling Steve. I literally went all season with 3 top ends. So, took the restrictor out, and now Rainey's got both my motors in 2 weekends.
Yeah,
gone. And then just called me yesterday and said, "Well, you need 7 gears to go along with it." So,
wait a minute. Both your motors. What you said both? What are you talking about?
Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. Yeah, no, I got a different one.
You have 2 now?
Yeah.
See, told you.
Do you guys know Pat? Have you seen his operation?
Jeez.
Dee's going no.
This is why I can't hang. Man. See, it's budget. Not when you're buying 2 motors.
It's used.
Did you buy the one that you were driving last weekend? Is that how it worked out?
No, I was using Gary's last weekend because mine were blown up.
Okay.
So Gary let me borrow a motor.
All right. I want to. What's D? Come on, D. Tell me how we're gonna get you.
Oh man.
4 tenths, 3 tenths.
I think you guys got it every time. It's track time. Every time.
Well, I don't know if you heard Sonoma now. I don't know. Let's not start something, but I won't be practicing anymore except for race weekends if they hold up their schedule. So they've changed their schedule, and their practice days are my work days, basically. So, which is I'm going to call BS on all that, but whatever. That's going to be their prerogative to change their days. There's going to be a lot of people that are not going to participate. On the days
that has to be directed with the big track.
Yeah, right. I know.
So for those who don't understand, the big track really says, "Hey, these are the dates you can have. This is what's available. Do you want them or don't you want them?" And Sonoma's so busy, so they have a lot of stuff going on at Sonoma. They have kart rentals. They have all kinds of corporate stuff going on. So if we want more track time, we need to go to them and say, hey, we want more track time. And then you guys show up. You got to show up. So Dee,
Mondays don't work.
Yeah, they're talking practicing. So once they start talking practicing, and as we know, I'm out. Like it's again, this is where the sport itself is awesome for me and the family, right? So we get 8 months a year where my kids have something to look forward to. They come, there's just as much a part of it as I enjoy it. So selfishly, it's a hobby that I love that they come and participate with. So right now with young kids, it's the same as everyone's been through, right? It's prioritizing time and which things matters. And for me, a couple hours to the track to go race a couple hours and then a couple hours home is a full day away from the family. Right now, that's a sacrifice that it's a little bit tough to swallow. But to me, I go, and if I can be 95% there, and if that's 4/10 off pace, then that's kind of where my competitive brain gets a little frustrated. But I think that's where it is. So I mean, I'm kind of the one that does the opposite. That their practice and track time, practice motors, I'm envious of. But when the race weekend comes around, I have just as much fun. And if I'm finishing 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a good accomplishment for me. So a little bit different, but just as enjoyable.
Yeah, but I think the point is you understand what your race program is.
Yeah.
And again, prioritizing family time. I think we've all been there at some point with different hobbies or even karting itself, and that's part of it.
Yeah. And it's been such I mean, everyone there with the after race barbecues and the my little ones become close with other racers there, and it gives it that family thing of it doesn't it's hard to find something really else that compares where I can go and truly focus selfishly on the racing and they can come and really enjoy it. So the setup there and everyone's been so welcoming and great with the kids and they're just
you got it going on though. I mean, what you have is very your team atmosphere. I mean, you've graciously give me food all the time. You're like, dude, come on, we're barbecuing, blah blah blah. We're making pizzas. He brought a pizza oven to the track this year and made homemade pizzas, like 50 of them. Like it is a cool. The track atmosphere up there, if people are listening and they're thinking of coming up and doing the Sonoma series, I highly recommend it. I've raced all the series, as most people know, and there's nothing bad. All the series are awesome. This one's just closest to me, so it works. But the atmosphere up there is, it's nice. People camping out and doing their thing, like Dee's saying. It's cool. I kind of like it a lot.
Yeah, and Dee, didn't you guys have like a boil going on this year? And
yeah, we did a little bit of everything. So obviously with Rob, he's a remarkable chef, I would say, and it's fun to go and kind of push his boundaries there with the pizzas or the seafood boil, and like again, it brings everyone together. And so if we all race all day long and then everyone's done wrenching on their karts and can have a big cookout with 40 or 50 people coming by, I think that's the parts that we all remember the racing, but down the road, that social part to me is it's just as fun to talk after the race and hang out and actually meet each other. To me, it's like you get good friends, right? We all have our personal lives and work lives, and then you have your race friends, and you look forward to go and hang out and talk about the same interests. And again, being so welcome to the family and everything, it's the atmosphere is fantastic.
Yeah, and that's kind of the neat thing about Sonoma is that you have, the Ron Whites, the Gary Carltons, they roll in with the big teams, the big tent, and then you don't see them having a barbecue and eating and everything else. They're working hard on the karts, they're testing, etc. And then you have, like you just said with Illuminos, it's like, and Illuminos they're competitive as well. So it's not like, they're not showing up for the race. They're still a very competitive squad. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you smell food, it's probably from his pit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The social part is what makes it, obviously for Rob, he encourages me to practice and for the betterment of the brand, that would be advantageous, right? To make it better. But I kind of settle on him and go like, I'll see you and we'll barbecue and I'll run 4th or 5th and we'll be good. So it's probably not the right setup for Rob, but the social part makes it worth it.
Yeah. And then, for a lot of people too, it's Sonoma's just a challenge to get to, just in general. Especially where you're at. I mean, you don't have a track in your backyard. So I think, Pat, you're up in Northern California, right?
Right.
So how far is Redding from you?
45 minutes.
45 minutes. And then Steve, I'm assuming Sonoma is your local track?
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know, 18 miles away.
Okay, so you're the closest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 hours for me. Like from practice days on Friday, I get up here at 3 a.m. and I'm gone. So I could beat the traffic on 80 getting to the track. So yeah, Fridays are long days for me to go practice.
He'll call me like 7:45. Are you leaving yet? And I'm like, I'm just finishing breakfast because I'm 20 minutes away, right? It's like, I'll be there in a second, and poor Pat, he drives that far. I always encourage Dee. I'm always texting him like, dude, come on, just do one. If Dee can do one practice day a month outside of race day, he's got 2 tents right there. That's it. Yeah. He's got a new work schedule, so I don't know about it, but maybe that'll help out.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna see Dee Baldwin at the front of the pack this year, and you guys are gonna stop talking to him.
We just need some water on the track, and we'll be good.
Water on the track.
No, you know what? I've as banged up as all of us got this year. I don't think anyone has hard feelings. I mean, I know I don't. It's a great group of guys. Once again, I encourage any guy that's a shifter guy, really look into the limited side if you really want to race. It's a great package, great group of guys. I don't know, we're ranging from 12 to 17 per event. That's pretty high when it comes to master side. So outside of the 206 stuff, where Prairie City's getting 40, so we need to yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Another thing too is with the limited, like what you were saying earlier about how it's less wearing on your body.
Yeah.
Jason, Steve, and I have talked about this probably 10 times in laughing conversations. Roger Cornwell's 78 years old.
Yeah.
And he's 3/10, maybe.
Yeah.
He's right there. And if he's ever in front of you on a practice day, you've got to work to get around him. So I will guarantee you that chances are Neil Joseph will not be 78 years old still banging gears.
Yeah.
I'm not that he won't be able to, but it's that's where Steve was correct. The shifter limited is 3/10 faster than Rock GP at Sonoma because I've done them both. So in fact, Derek Wang's time for Rock, the CRC race last year, or I think Adam Kasich had fastest lap, and your fastest lap, you were like 4/10 faster. So it's the same as the Rock GP, half the cost.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than banging gears. I don't know. The first time I drove a shifter from a tag, all of a sudden I felt like I'm a real race car driver. That's alive. What in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy.
I'm alive. So one of you mentioned tic-tac-toe earlier about, tossing chains, all that fun stuff. Tic-tac-toe is such an iconic section of the kart track. And I mean, it's known all over the world.
It's past tense now.
It's what?
It's past tense now.
It's past tense now. So did all three of you drive the barrier test layout?
Yes, it was awesome.
Okay. Now, have you guys driven the new layout now?
Yes.
I have.
Yeah, we both have.
So what do you think about it?
Barrier 100 times better.
Come on, D, you got to practice.
I saw it. I was there. I saw it.
I need an Allen Iverson picture.
Got to put the barriers back up. Got to put the barriers back up.
Yeah, Pat will tell you what's happening right now, and they'll probably, imagine they're going to figure it out. But the new version's awesome, but you can cut the track, or everyone does cut the track, and it's putting dirt across the track. So each time you come through it, and we're doing 10 lap sessions, each lap you're coming through it, you don't know how hard to come in because there's dust and dirt across the track, each tick, tack, and not so much toe, but tick and tack. Yeah.
Now, is it wider now than it was with the barriers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's faster as well. Well, I guess it would be faster if you're cutting it.
I think it's great. I'm a fan of it. It's going to be less painful, right, on the body, chassis, all that stuff. Pat wants the barriers back up. We all know how my race weekend went with the barriers.
Not great.
Not good. So they just the barriers in that section cause if someone wrecks in front of you and hits the barriers, whoever's behind that person or two is just going to get collected in it. At least now with no barriers, you could work your way through it no matter how it goes. They'll find a solution. I'm hoping that it won't let you cut the track, because why even change it if you're going to still be able to cut the track, and then find a way that it doesn't bring so much dirt up onto the track. My only thought would be, and I think they've done it before in the past, putting cones on the inside of the curbs, and having a corner worker there that's safe for race weekend, putting cones there. And if you knock over a cone, it's say a time penalty or something to that effect, right? Yeah. And then someone's there to put it right back for the next lap coming through. So
I personally hate cones on a kart track. They can wreak havoc.
Yes.
When they go underneath.
Yes.
They did that at a track, Grand Junction. They had a similar section of tic-tac-toe, but it was wider, faster. The curbs were bigger, but not steeper, just bigger, like very, very drivable. And guys would come off the hill, and I don't think they turned the wheel. They just would fly over it. And there were just some iconic pictures from Grand Junction of guys you don't see the track in the picture. It's just dirt and a cart 2-3 feet off the ground.
That was Jim Kidd when this year running reverse sprint.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Reverse sprint. Jim Kidd would go through there. I mean, he's got it dialed. That guy airborne's 3 feet off the air like a ramp. Wing! And he gains 2-3 cart lengths going through it. Just he's willing to sacrifice. And that guy rolls no rib vest. I'm like, God, Jesus, that guy's an animal. I don't get it.
So we have someone that just joined us. Steve,
yeah.
You're gonna have to unmute your mic.
Howdy.
There we go. Your ears must be burning.
Yeah, I was listening to all the stories there, so I have a little input to some of the points. So curbing. So the new tic-tac-toe. It in my mind it probably didn't turn out quite as envisioned, but I think it's better than what we had before. A lot of people wouldn't come to the track. They just didn't want to drive tic-tac-toe. They didn't want to lose chains. They didn't want to break ribs. I can personally tell you, I had back surgery due to tic-tac-toe, so I know what it can do. When we ran the walls there, I think the layout was good. It made good racing. It gave us another passing zone. As you know, Jim Kidd hit the wall, and he was the only guy that really disrupted the races. But I think, like you said, they didn't quite make the curbs steep enough, so it's easier to roll inside them. I was together with Diego. We walked it about a week or two ago, and I think what we're looking at is maybe on the inside of the curb is putting essentially like bumpers. When you run an extension cord across the road, you have those raised rubber bumpers, something like that, maybe a foot apart, something like that. So it doesn't launch you, but it really disrupts you. So I think we'll probably add something like that just to stop people running inside them. And I don't think that'll be brutal, but it'll just maybe make it less, it won't be as quick to go inside the curb there. But the other side of it is you're going a lot slower. So when you do get on the curb, you do get up there, I don't think the damage would be significant like it was when you straight lined tic-tac-toe before. going back to the practice deal, I mean, that's a frustrating thing, I know, for everybody about how many days we're getting open track now. We hammer on those guys, but with their change in management, the whole, it was tough when we worked with Sim Raceway. Obviously, that went sideways, and Sonoma took over the track again. Then Steve Page was really a good ally of ours. Steve is gone, so they've got a whole new management team in place. Their philosophy is a little bit different. They're very corporate. They're controlled a lot by what happens in Charlotte. And Charlotte's got a vision of the racing world, NASCAR world, that's a little bit different to maybe our vision. So they're very focused on corporate events, the funds they raise from those, other ways to generate revenue from the track other than just plain old racing. So it's a battle to convince them that it's worth having 10 karts out there doing an open practice day versus them selling a corporate day for $20,000. I mean, that's the reality of their world. So they've committed to I think almost every Sunday that's open that we'll have the track. There'll be Mondays as well. They will probably have most of the Fridays before our events as open practice. We may do a deal with them to take those days ourselves so that we could offer those to people. We'll see how that works out. And then they are motivated. They have a lot of half-day events where it's corporate or schools or whatever. So we're pushing hard that it's in their best interest to give us those half-day events where, whether it's a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday or whatever, where they maybe got the school in the morning and we can have the rest of the day for open practice. And to be honest, that I think most guys, if they get a half day on the track, that's probably enough, especially the 125 limited guys, because you guys are all old and slow and get worn out really quick. So I think a half day is more than you need. So we're trying hard.
Weren't you just out there on Unlimited last Saturday or Sunday?
Oh, yeah.
Saturday.
Out there. I think I was out there. This guy
Sunday
past me, but I thought, man, he's got a bloody good motor. Jesus Christ, that thing. If that's a limited motor, Ron White gave me a piece of crap. And then then he tells me it wasn't a limited motor, so I didn't feel quite so bad. So
I just wanted to tell you, Steve, we are fans. I know you are championing for us in the series and everything. So thank you for what you're doing.
It was actually interesting today. Billy Cleveland, which you guys all know, he's a renowned driver. I mean, super accomplished. He dropped a kart off at our shop today that he'd sold to somebody. So I took him over and I showed him the 125 limited kart in the shop, and he got all excited about it because the last time he drove a Masters 125, he was kind of frustrated again by what it took to drive it, his fitness, and even though he's quite fit in the tag karts, and the cost to operate it. So he's going to be up here doing some of our races. So whether it's my kart or one of you guys' karts, he's excited to get in and actually try a 125 limited kart. So I thought that was a really good, contact today of somebody that can really help promote what the chassis is, what it does, how great it is for the sport in general. And again, you guys are doing a good job of trying to promote it nationally. I push on Garrett every day that all the regions should open this up, because I think that they're missing out. There's a huge amount of people that want to run shifter karts, and 80s are, obviously 80s are difficult. That's not really that affordable or easy to get into now. So, guys that are recreational drivers that want to run shifter karts, the 125 open kart is just not, it's not possible. It's too physically demanding. It's expensive to run. The 125 offers Rock this huge, amount of drivers that could get into the sport. So again, we just got to keep pushing on it and hope that people see what it can offer.
What do you think going for the 22 season? How which race do you, as a group? Because I know me, Pat, and Dee, we've all talked about this about showcasing the limited. So maybe the Cup race, whenever, if it's in September or whenever it is, what would be a good race that we gather all us limited guys and enter the Cup race or the challenge race? Which one do you feel is the one that would showcase the
Well, I
system?
mean, I think again things are unfolding. I think September. Sadly, it's a fair way away, but you know, I believe in September we're going to put together something that's going to be pretty special with Rock. We haven't finalized it yet, but Rock Fest as a standalone event will probably not happen next year. What they looked at is it would behoove them to maybe just come on board with us and potentially with Andy with Challenge of Americas, do one big event where we take the money that they spent to bring in their crew, their transporters, their containers, what have you, take that extra money and put together a big event in September that's basically a Sonoma Rock race, potentially Challenge of the Americas or California Rock Championship, and Rock Fest, and then take the extra money that they would have spent to run that event and use that as a big prize money fund, a promotional fund, and have a really big event. And I think like what Dee's doing, part of what Rock wants to do is make that a social event where they'll have a big barbecue, whether it's Friday or Saturday or Sunday. Have a lot of activities that are social activities to sort of get everybody to work together, but primarily spend the money that they would normally spend on bringing the. Sorry about that. So they would basically invest that money in putting together a really big event in September. So I think that's going to be the event to showcase because it'll be essentially our event under our rules and with our classes. So I think that's probably going to be the event that hopefully we can showcase the class.
Okay.
That's good to hear from the Rock standpoint, because the Rockfest stuff has been lackluster, if you will.
Yeah.
And they've tried it for a number of years now, and it just, at this point in their evolution, it just hasn't gained the traction. They've had some great Vegas events, which I don't understand why it doesn't translate. I probably haven't put a lot of thought process into it, but it's great to hear they're trying to switch things up to bring more value in what's going to work. You know, it almost sounds like it's going to be more of a almost an event versus a race.
Yeah, and I think that again, some of it's timing. You know, it's tough to get the East Coast teams to come out because there's races back there. They're prepping for Vegas, whatever. So I think that the plan for them will be basically they still will have Rockfest East and West, and they're going to do the same thing on the East Coast. They're going to join up with one of the big series, one of the big local type series, regional series on the East Coast, and do the same thing where they'll promote their event with that group that's already in place. They've got then all the local support, and then hopefully they'll bring in some people from either out of state or from further away to promote that event. So Garrett and the guys there, I mean, they work hard to find ways to promote the program. They invest a lot of money, a lot of time into it. So like anything, I think it's everybody's trying to figure out how to build programs. There's a lot of competition out there, with different types of series, different promoters. Everybody's after the same piece of the pie. From our standpoint, I think like 80 is 125 limit's been like our big growth class, and so I think one of the things is try to figure out how to learn from that. From my standpoint, how do we get more juniors, more minis, more micros? How do we get people that you don't want to just take away from the other local series? I don't want to take away from KPX. I don't want to take away from Dixon Davis. I mean, we would like them to come to our events and support it, but ultimately we got to figure out how to get new guys into the sport, or people that have got out of the sport, how to bring them back. So, I think as the beginning of the year, one of the things we'll try to do is get together with the teams, the competitors, and figure out, we tried to do that last year, but it's, it's funny. You get a group of guys in the room, you get Greg Bauer, you get Ron White, you get Gary Carlton, and everybody's got a different idea on like how this works and why it works or why it doesn't work. And, it turns into a half an hour of everyone just telling everybody how basically they're not very good at what they do. But
get those three guys in the same room. It's a pissing match between all three.
You got no idea. But I mean, they're all got great intentions, but it's hard to get a consensus on what do we need to do to get growth. So one of the things that'll be interesting, just again, we haven't really announced it yet, but Sanzaru Games has been our primary sponsor for a lot of years. So Glenn Egan is the principal of that, and that company is actually being sold. He's been lucky enough to, in the .com world, move that company on. He's still involved in it, but he set up a foundation, which is the Glenn Egan Family Trust, and through that he's established a charity, and that charity's goal is to fund or help fund young drivers and young karters into racing. So it's a legitimate charity. It's got a goal. It's got a purpose. So one of the things that we're able to do through that now is try to get people to get involved in sponsoring, not necessarily our series, but sponsoring that charity. And then from that charity, funds can come back to help offset. One of my big goals is if we can get people involved where they've got a tax deduction because they're sponsoring or funding or giving a donation to a charity, then that charity in turn can sponsor the series. And then we can say, okay, we can give minis or micros, they can come and race with no entry fee. So that's something that's just come together in the last couple of weeks. And it's something we'll work on for the, in the next, to announce hopefully by our banquet. But I believe that might open the door to a lot of people that really have not been able to, say, invest in sponsoring the series because, maybe it doesn't meet their marketing needs or it's not really a tax deduction as such. But the charity itself will legitimately be a way that people can, go to their business partners, go to friends or whatever, and actually invest in a direct way that we can add growth. Because ultimately for me, if we could find a way to fund the series where you didn't have to, obviously everyone knows our costs are high at Sonoma for other things, but if we can reduce our entry fees down to zero or extremely low, that's going to help everybody's budgets immensely, and that's going to help growth, and we help the junior guys come to the series, then it helps it right through the series. So yeah, that's one of the big things we want to talk about.
So real quick, Steve, another Steven is on the chat lines. He said California Rock in 2019 did an open shifter race in Fontana. Could Rock Sonoma do a race like that in 2022? So I asked him to expand on it, and he means like the not an introduction, but just a one-off race with Hondas, KZs, Rock. Is that a possibility for Sonoma?
Probably, in all honesty, probably not. It's enough of a battle we've got going on right now to figure out, can we allow the KAs to continue to run with the VLRs? Rock USA and Rock International, they're a pretty significant partner, and they invest a lot of money in the West Coast and in our series. So, they might consider it, but, first and foremost, their goal is to build the Rock brand on the West Coast. So it's hard to go back to them and say, hey, we want to let a Honda come in, we want to let a, KZ come in or whatever. So I would say it would be tough to make that happen. That doesn't mean to say that we couldn't have a standalone event where that could be a possibility. One of the things that I've got a couple of people keep asking me, and you guys can get some feedback on this, is that I've got a couple of people that are interested in funding and putting together in another enduro at Sonoma. So it's something that used to be really popular. It seems that maybe there's some interest in doing that, and maybe that sort of event, which is not necessarily part of our weekend, but it's another weekend that we can put together where we do an enduro event, and that can be a bit more of a free for all. So I don't know what you guys think about doing another enduro event at the track.
Dee Baldwin, you like enduros?
Oh, I'm in 100%. Let's do it this weekend. Yep, that sounds like a great idea.
I know Jim Kidd's in for that one because he keeps talking about the enduro stuff.
I did the Sid White a few years back down in Monterey. It was actually really fun. It was in the 4-stroke stuff, but you had to have, I think it was a minimum of 3 drivers for the 4 hours, and you had to have a minimum weight, obviously. Or no, there was a minimum. You had to weigh the 3 drivers or 4 drivers, and you had to equal, all your weights had to equal a minimum weight, basically. So you couldn't have all 140-pound drivers, basically, right? It was fun. So it's actually hard. Driving a go-kart for an hour, driving for 20 minutes is hard enough. An hour is like, wow. Even in the 4-stroke, it was still kind of hard because you had to pace yourself. You know what I mean? That concentration for an hour is a lot.
How about you, Pat? Enduro, yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay? Are we
as long as it's not a 4-stroke. He says 4 strokes are done in his life, period.
We're going to use Pat's cart. I'm going to do a Norcal Karting team, and it's Pat's cart with Pat's engine on the Enduro.
I'm in.
I wanted to touch on what Steve Cameron was talking about and address it to Dee, because Steve was saying like how to get people involved, and Dee Baldwin, you came in like out of nowhere. How did you find it? What was your experience finding this?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on it earlier. It's an interesting one. Karting is a hard barrier to break into. So for me, I was racing down on the big track for a Lemons race, the standard 1,000 drivers down below, driving around really slow cars. And I would ride my bike up top. And one day I ran into Memo, right? And I recognized Memo. He was there. He's such a nice human being that, I felt comfortable just asking him, hey, how do I get into this? So he referred me to a couple of local guys. And that contact is what kicked it off for me. So I texted out, found a used cart. So I had a pretty small budget for $6,000. I bought a driving shifter cart. It was a tired chassis, but it allowed me to race the full first season on it. So to me, it's that breaking into the group, right? And then I bought a new chassis the next year, and it's kind of progressed from there. But really is having a contact person or somebody that can guide you through how to avoid, used junk, or something that you can get out there and race for a year and maybe not be the upper, echelon performer, but you're still going to go out there and have fun and really see what the potential is. And so that's what I did. So with no karting experience or no racing experience in the kart, and then going out there and again being humbled by all of you guys that are so good, that it's been enjoyable. So to me, it's I push it to everyone. I try and get everyone into my kart, because once you do that, I mean, I don't know how you go back to driving a Spec Miata or something compared to what you get for the investment in shifter karts. So, I'm a vocal advocate for it. And every person that we can get into the driver's seat of one of those karts has the likelihood of realizing, that's the next choice. And the Limited is a great class for that, for sure.
So Pat, how did you get into karting?
Well, actually, it's funny. I was at Ace Hardware, and the Corning Chevrolet mechanic, who he does the Outlaw karts, we were just talking. So anyway, make a long story short, I went to QRC and thought, man, this would be a lot of fun. And they gave me a bill for about $20,000. That was just to come back the next day and, get the kart. So I kept looking on the internet, and I actually called Cameron Karting probably 1,495 times, at least.
That sounds
never got a return call. And ever. And in fact, I think it was PK. He kept popping up on the screen going, "What do you want to chat about?" I think. And so anyway, then I on the internet, karting concept in Woodland. I'm like, oh, that's just around the corner. So I called Patrick probably 42 million times and never got a return phone call. So I was actually on my way to Sacramento. And I thought, all right, that's it. I'm going to call this guy. I'm going to leave voicemail. If he doesn't call me back, then there is no karting. That's it. Doesn't exist. And he called me back. 2 weeks later, I had the Intrepid in a 4-stroke and was down at Davis Blue Max. That's how it started.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but that I was going to do the Outlaw Karts because Red Bluff is literally like a driver and a 9-iron from my house. So I thought, and then you've got Chico and the Outlaw Karts. I thought, man, it'd be a lot of fun. But, people talk about karting being the one and out. Outlaws for most people is one and out, 1 day and out. And the cost of that operation. That was how I got started.
That's how you got started. Steve Piggott.
How did I start?
Started?
Oh man, it starts with, you have a little kid, little boy, and you dream about like, oh my God. I used to race dirt bikes as a kid, but I wouldn't put my kid on a dirt bike because my body's broken from racing dirt bikes as a kid. So yeah, it started off my kid. I got him an energy kart, cadet, not even cadet, kid kart with a Comer 50, and then went out to Kinsman because I think Sonoma was just getting going. Went out to Kinsman and kind of started going out there, and shout out to good old Doug and Clayton Williams. I was going to buy their kart, and they're like, oh no, because he had a bigger kart than what I needed. So once my kids started doing it, I'm like, well, Dad has to have a go-kart, so Dad got a go-kart, and we just kind of started racing the Kinsman kind of series for a couple years, and then it was like, okay, let's move on to Sonoma since it's closer, and that was the Vortex Micromax. Did that for a few years, and then we moved into junior, and by then he was kind of just getting burnt out on karting. And I at the time had a CRG Road Rebel with a shifter chassis with a Rotax tag on it, and Patrick O'Neill. I practice on Fridays. Patrick O'Neill practices on Fridays. Get to know him over the years, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey man, why don't you try?" He was on, obviously CRG Run White stuff, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you take my shifter out for a spin?" And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it's just like we've all experienced. If you go from whatever you go from, you hop on a shifter, it blows your mind. It is so powerful. It's so grippy. It's so responsive. It's so everything. That guy's 6'4", I'm 5'10". I'm floating in the go-kart. I come off the track and I'm just like, I put my stuff up for sale at that point. I'm like, I'm buying a shifter. What's the point in go-karting if you're not on a shifter? And that's flat out how I feel right now. There's no point in being in a go-kart if you're not on a shifter. Shifting is the art form of shifting. There's an art form on 4 strokes and blah, 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 blah. But the faster you go, the better you have to be flat out. So the shifter it's the best thing ever. I'm Pat. There's a reason why Pat is fast because he's addicted. We talk about it. It's like taking my heroin addiction. Like, dude, are we going go-karting this weekend? Like, you have to go. It's so addicting.
Absolutely. Steve Cameron, you want to wrap this segment up with how you got started in karting?
Well, I raced karts, obviously, when I was a kid in New Zealand. And I didn't actually race. I drove karts when I was really, really little, about 5 or 6 years old. Then kind of sat it out for a while. And then when I decided I wanted to, continue on, I got back into karting in New Zealand. I raced McCulloch's in New Zealand, and I don't want to say, but it was in the 70s. And then raced those, and then obviously I got into race cars, and I was lucky enough to sort of transition through that and had some success. We I did fairly well in racing New Zealand, and came to America and to race cars, and had some success in that. I got to race Atlantics and everything, and then in the early 90s, we actually started running Mamo Gidley. So Mamo's first foray into race cars he was a Track Magic guy, and he came visiting our shop, and I'd never seen this kid. He comes and he's like, hey, I've got some backing, I want to drive race cars. I'm like, oh yeah, like everybody, right? So, but anyway, we managed to put a program together with Mamo that was in Shelby Can-Ams. So we ran Mamo and has introduced him. He'd been doing the Jim Russell program down at Laguna, but we ended up running him in Shelby Can-Am. But at that point, he was a Track Magic guy. So we thought, kart. So we started. I thought, man, I want to get back into karting because I've been running Atlantics and stuff like that. So I thought, man, karting would be fun. So basically, I put together an 80, and like Steve, we ran a Dixon in 80. I ran 80 limited on the YDS tires, and 80 got open, I guess, was on the sticky tire. Brett Buckwelder was running 80s. It was a huge class. So that's what we ran for a lot of years back in the early 90s at Dixon. And then, moving to shifter karts, and obviously Sonoma opened, and we kind of kept developing from there. But basically it was through Mamo that we ended up sort of getting back into karting. And after Mamo, like we ran a program called Lynx Racing in Atlantic Cars, and we ran a lot of high, very successful guys. We ran Mamo, Patrick Capantier, Marco Valiente, Brian Sellers, Buddy Rice. They're all kids that we ran and brought up through our race program. But every one of those guys raced karts at the same time. And funny enough, the kart that we believe was the best training for our Atlantic drivers was 80 shifters. The 125s are, as Steve said, they're fun, they're super fast, but they're almost more, they're a point and squirt kind of kart. And, I think maybe for an IndyCar, they're comparable. We were running Atlantic, which was the junior format, just under IndyCar. So 80 shifters were the perfect, especially on the YDS tire. They were the perfect training for myself. I drove them. I did a lot of driving the Atlantics and all Atlantic guys, because they were shifting, but they still took a lot of balance. You had to be good on brakes because they would chatter brakes if you got in just a little too hot. You had to use momentum. And interestingly enough, for us, I preferred the guys who ran 80 shifters than 125. Now I would say with 80 gone, and I'm sort of self-promoting, but the 125 limited basically fills that void. I mean, it's the perfect, as you guys know, I was out on mine this weekend. Finally, I figured I should do some practice since I embarrassed myself so bad at that last race. Because I want to go after and I want to beat Steve really, really bad right now. Because I don't like getting
I've said that for years.
So I'm going to practice so at least I can see the back of Steve and Pat and not get pulled away from. But I think that, again, whether it's myself or anybody else, it's as far as a training tool, it's perfect, because you don't have to drive it every week to physically be able to do it. But again, even though it loses a little bit of power off the corner because it's a little bit softer on the hit, you still have to be super strong on brakes, because that's such a big amount of lap time. And in a race car or a go-kart or a 125 in particular, being really, really strong on brakes is something we work hard on with our race drivers. And it's the same thing in the 125 limited, because I think people underestimate just how much time you make up on brakes and those things. And, rolling through the corner, because again, they don't quite have as hard a hit as the open 125. So you do have to roll probably a little more speed than you would. It's a bit like a tag kart in that regard. So, again, we sort of digress there, but from my standpoint, as a training tool for race drivers and making better kart drivers, it's just such an awesome thing, That's my
very
pick.
good. Very good. That was a good live stream. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, good.
So we had Steve Cameron join us to clarify some of the track stuff going on. We have Steve Pago. We have Dee Baldwin. I'm not going to say him last this time.
Yes.
And we have Pat Beckley. Is there anything you guys want to say in closing?
Just real quick, Steve. So
Yeah.
I believe this or not, Steve Pago. I was actually thinking, honest to God, yesterday, I wonder if I was to get Billy Cleveland's phone number and see if he'd be interested in coming up. And now Steve just tells us that maybe he's interested.
There you go. Right.
We'll have to do a lot more practice.
Be careful what you hope for with Cleveland.
Yeah. He's mighty
He's a
good.
wheelman.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we'll get Derek Wang and Adam Kasnick, and well, it's just be just racing.
And then Garrett could put us in Vegas, and we have a class, and that's it. There you go.
There you go.
That'd be cool.
All right, we're going to wrap up on this question from the screen name is Gear Nuts. Thank you, guys. My 10-year-old son and I run our karts recreationally here in the Valley. Do you guys have favorite tracks?
Every track serves its purpose.
Every track serves its purpose.
Every track
That's correct.
Every track serves its purpose, from Reno to Redding to Prairie City. Dixon, if you want a neck this big, I mean, they're all there. Every track serves its purpose, but Sonoma, hands down, is the best in Northern California and in California.
Yeah.
Period.
So Pat Beckley, Sonoma. Steve Pago.
I mean, I agree with Pat. All the tracks in our Bay Area here, they all offer tools that can make you a better driver. I would discourage sticking at one track. I did that with my kid, and if you stick with one track regularly, you're gonna develop habits that will kill you at another track. So I love Sonoma. Obviously, it is actually, for me, it's a sweet track. I love Redding, and I love Reno, and I loved Atwater before it closed down.
Nice. Dee Baldwin.
He's only been to one track.
I know. I can't. How do I follow Steve yelling at me about only being at one track? I bought a used car. Did like 5 laps at Dixon. So that's all I know. Sonoma is home to me.
Sonoma is home.
As Steve wants to yell at me about it, but
I try so hard all the time, dude. I'm going up to Reno. Come up,
But no, I mean, Sonoma to me outright is. I mean, it just seems like just the atmosphere of Sonoma, the big track. You're going up top. Gorgeous views. The facility's awesome. The people there. Although it's all I know, I can't imagine going to somewhere else that's gonna knock my socks off like that. So that's it for me.
Steve Cameron, do you have a favorite track? Kart track.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think I'm like Steve. I mean, I love Sonoma. I mean, the fact that you can run now, especially now that we've taken care of the tic-tac-toe, I think, issue. You've got 5 or 6 different configurations you can run. So what makes it special is that we can run basically a different configuration every month. But I think there's a lot to be learned at Davis, at Dixon, at Prairie City. To be honest, I've never really driven any other tracks, like Stockton or Atwater or any of those tracks. I've driven Prairie City and Dixon and Davis, obviously. So, when we were getting ready to actually go to Vegas with Christian, we went and ran Davis because I felt that was a better track to test for Vegas than Sonoma. It was tighter. It's got some walls. Lower grip. So I think every driver should try to experience different tracks, different types of situations, because that's what's going to make you better. So Sonoma's still my favorite, but I'm a fan of basically any racetrack that you can get on and have fun at.
All right. So I'm going to wrap up this podcast, and then I'm going to bring each of you on, give you your own screen, drop a sponsor, drop a team name, drop something. And that's how we'll wrap up this show. Let's start with No, I'm gonna leave D last because I feel like we kind of shortchanged him, so we're gonna let him wrap the show up. So, Steve Pago, wrap us up.
Go. Oh man, hey, that's not Steve.
Yeah,
That's Steve. Oh no, Jason, thanks for having us on. This is cool. I can do this again. Yeah, for me, obviously it's the Ron White Racing program Steve goes on, and it's just hammer down. And I'm looking forward to 2022. Me and Pat are good friends. Me and Dee are good friends. See how this season unfolds.
All right. There you have it, Steve Pago. And he's also your class champion for the limited class in 2021. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And then next up, we're going to have Pat Beckley.
Well, of course, thank GFC for everything. And I do want to thank Steve Cameron. As I told them at the last race, they put on a good show. It's a lot of fun. It's good racing. And just really thank everybody in Northern California. It's worth it. All the Northern California karting, of course, could be better, could be bigger, but every person in it, it's good to have. So it's all good.
If we all get one person involved in 2022, we'll double.
That would be perfect, wouldn't it?
That would be perfect. And then let's go ahead.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm good.
So Steve Cameron, give a plug to your series.
Well, obviously, we want as many people as can to come to the Rock Sonoma series. Go back, maybe revisit some of the videos from last year. Obviously, you can see the links, Rock Sonoma on YouTube. So I think if people go and watch those races, they go and see how exciting they were, how good the competition was. That would be a great way to get people excited about coming into the new year. Obviously, we've got our banquet coming on February 5th, so we'll be working on prizes and awards for that. Steve Peugeot will hopefully get something that he'll remember, and something special for Steve. Yes, and just excited. I really appreciate the 125 limited drivers. The class has grown immensely, and what's nice about that class is it seems that everybody is friends in it. And they're all there. They all work hard to promote the growth of the class. So, it's a little bit unusual, I think, in karting to have guys who are competitors but actually work together for the betterment of a class and the series. So I appreciate it a lot. Obviously, Jason, I appreciate what you do for the series and for the sport in NorCal. I'm looking forward to an exciting year. Hopefully some more announcements coming. We're working hard to try and get more sponsors, and as I say, I think the opportunity to work with Glenn Egan and his foundation to raise some additional sponsorship to help maybe reduce the cost and bring some more juniors into it will be a great thing for the series. So thanks again, and I'm looking forward to this coming year. Everybody have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Steve.
Merry Christmas.
And rounding out our show is going to be Dee Baldwin.
Yeah, Jason, thank you for doing this. And again, everyone who's listening, obviously I appreciate it. Humbling. The Camera family, thank you for everything. For me, I feel almost like a little brother to everyone with no experience and not a long history of doing this. So with me racing with Illuminos, Rob Soares is a great resource to me. Jim and Cassie Kidd, as much as he beats up on me and yells at me about everything is super helpful. Stefan Gaudreau has been great. Steve, Pat, everyone else, I appreciate all the support from everyone. And again, to me, the family part is the biggest separator from other, I'm not going out and golfing and gone for the whole day. For anyone that's looking at doing it, please, hit me up, hit any of these guys up that are on here. They're all, short of when Steve's trying to change his tires 14 times a day, he's there to answer questions, and as would I. So the more guys we can get out there, the better. And thanks for everything.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you for supporting Norcal Karters with that T-shirt there.
Yep.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to be on the show, send me a message. If you have some content you'd like to talk about, send me a message. If you want to get involved in the karting, send me a message. NorcalKarters@gmail.com, NorcalKarters.com. And thank you, everyone. And once again, if we all just got one person in the sport next year, we would double. So with that, thank you and have a great evening and Merry Christmas.
Jason, can I say one last real quick thing I forgot to say?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned earlier that have some of the other people do their show, like Jacinta Taylor and them do their show also.
Yes.
I know that they would like to get a bunch of the juniors together, the junior 100cc,
yep,
and talk about what they would like to see in Northern California. So I know that they're very interested in having a show. So
yeah, absolutely. The show is an open invite for Norcal Karters.
Okay, I see Preston giving a clapping hands. Yeah. So yeah, I know that they have a lot of input, and they would like to see the junior 100cc really grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, this platform is for all racers. Well,
cool.
All karters.
Cool. All right. Okay, guys. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
All right, everyone. We're signing off. Thank you again for watching. If you like what we're doing, share the content. We can also accept donations. I don't mind those either. So have a great weekend, and we'll be back next week.
Talk to you later. Merry Christmas.